All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hopefully everyone is having a good week. I hear coughing. People not well. A lot of sickness going around. So be careful. All right, let's look at John chapter 12. We can have two readers. If we could just read from the sheet, that would be better. There's 11 verses, so can we have someone read 1 through 10? Oh, sorry, 1 through 5, and someone read 6 through 11. Two readers. One read 1 through 5, and the other 6 through 11. If we could read from the sheet, the New King James Version.
Then 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There he made him a supper, and Martha served. But Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?"
This is said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had a money box, and he used to take what was put in it. But Jesus said, "Let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always." Now a great many of the Jews knew that he was there, and they came, not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might also see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death also, because on account of him many of the Jews went away and believed in Jesus.
All right, thanks. So Sunday we looked at this, which if you, depending on the header in your Bible, you may have a header that says something to the effect of the anointing of Bethany. This chapter in John as a book is a very good book for non-Christians or new converts to read first if they were going to read any gospel. It's a very intimate writing style. So John is pointing out some things in progress to get to Jerusalem and highlighting them, emphasizing them a little bit more than some of the other writers, although this section here is in Matthew and Mark as well. But in chapter 11, Lazarus dies. First he's sick, then he dies, and then Jesus goes there. He raises him from the dead, and that changed everything in terms of popularity. And then the Pharisees plotted to kill him, and then we kind of progress from there. In chapter 12, it starts off saying 6 days before the Passover, so a week before Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. So this dinner was almost around the time of Wednesday before, almost. So somewhere around midweek, the week before. Now, after this, we're going to get to the triumphal entry. Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. But this week is basically the last public social appearance that Jesus will have recorded here before the week of his death. The week of his death, we know, is in preparation for the Passover. They go into the city. He had already established a room would be ready. Remember, the donkey was set up in advance and all those sort of things. So what we have is Jesus returning back to Bethany, where Martha, Mary, Lazarus are brothers and sisters. So it was a family that he was intimately close to and had a good relationship with. So it's interesting that he chose them to be one of the last places that he went to fellowship with before the triumphal entry into the city of Jerusalem. Also, It's interesting that he brings the other disciples with him in the house to eat. And we'll kind of touch on that. But a couple of points to highlight from the passage that I have on the sheet here, also from Sunday's lesson, is Mary's gift exceeded extravagance. Judas's response in verse 5, why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? She uses a pound of perfume valued at about the yearly income of a manual laborer. Remember, we looked at last month day laborers, right? So she used something that would be the equivalent of somebody's yearly salary is what she's pouring on Jesus' feet. So before we jump on Judas, if I had to be honest, I think every one of us silently would have something to say, right? If you've seen somebody, if collection was at the front and you had to walk by, or you seen someone sitting next to you and you seen the amount they wrote, or they took out $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 and put it in the collection plate, said, oh, that was my whole year's salary, you would inside be thinking like, what's going on, right? She's doing something. We're not talking about some perfume. You can go to Macy's or Neiman Marcus or some of the higher end Saks department store. Some perfumes you can get at CVS that cost $10-20. Some perfumes cost $500. Now you may be like, what, $500? Who was spending on perfume, right? Even past that, we're talking about a year's salary. What if you had something in your possession that was valued at a year's salary? Poured out on Jesus' feet. So that's the extravagance of her gift. Not just any kind of gift, but a big gift. So that's a big deal, right? So that's one thing to highlight. Second thing, Mary's hair adds to the act of immense intimacy, right? Calling to the attention the specific element of the atonement, right? Jesus looked at it as atonement, right? You know, preparation. We were talking about for burial and things like that on Sunday. She could have wiped it off with anything, right? Clothes, her shirt. She used her hair. Right now, some people take this to the far, far extreme. I only highlight it because we live in different times, right? But there are people that believe that Jesus was either married or romantically involved with Mary Magdalene or this Mary here, right? And they use this as one of the references. They're saying that even in this time, actually more so in this time than our time, this would be extremely awkward for everyone else in the room, and immediately their mind would think intimacy on a relationship level, right? Because somebody is using their hair. We're not talking about a shirt, a cloth. It's literally their hair, and then they run wild with these theories, right? Obviously, we won't get into that, but the reason why I mention it is so you understand when people bring up certain theories that they have online or wherever, it's coming from, they always try to root it in a verse, right? They're not, most people don't bring up something just obscurely out of nowhere. They try to say, look, she used her hair. That must mean they were romantically involved or something like that, right? Of that magnitude. But we'll get into the intimacy in a second. And still in bullet point number 2, it's an expression of deep love that those watching would hardly ignore or find ordinary. Don't jump on Judas yet. All of us would have had something to say. It's just that most people have something to say silently or gossip later, but everybody watching would have had something to say, right? Think of if you go to somebody's house and the husband was sitting there and the wife poured something on husband's feet and started sopping it up with her hair, we would be like, whoa, that's awkward, right? Like we would think, man, that's how y'all get down in the house with nobody around, right? We're reading this because it's Jesus. Sometimes we don't want to say what we feel, but this is not ordinary, right? We would feel uncomfortable if we see someone doing this, right? So it's the same thing as the washing of the feet, right? That would make us uncomfortable. If you went to somebody's house and the host got under the table and start taking shoes off and rubbing your feet. Some of us will start laughing. It's things that are people would feel like, no. Like even in our culture today, we can see it as impactful as the point of these things is it's not ordinary, right? So extraordinary thing. Okay, third bullet point. Mary's gift emits an aroma that saturates the house and the minds of everyone in it, right? The other thing is it's not that she's just doing something that you see, but it's another sense that you're experiencing, which is also smell. Now, smell is extremely powerful, right? A scent could remind you of an entirely different place, country, time, person, right? One smell of something could have your mind wandering, right? Good or bad, right? Good odor and bad odor, either way could have you kind of in your zone feelings, what have you. So we recognize that smell is what also would have captivated, right? It's something that even if it was seeing, it was smelling, it would have been in your senses, and you would have been hard to concentrate on anything else. Fourth bullet point: Mary and Judas contrast true and false discipleship, as well as true and false love. We'll get into that with the question, but just keep that in your mind. And then lastly, this passage warns against mistaking discipline for discipleship. If it embraces affection as a part of a devotion of Jesus that is nothing less than the costly precious gift of one's whole self. Okay, that's just keep that in your mind as the backdrop. All right, first question, because we don't really need much recap for this, because this story is pretty self-explanatory. What Christian lessons can be pulled from Mary's interaction with Jesus and Jesus's interaction with Mary? Think Mary's first, right? What lessons, what application? Somebody reads it for the first time, they may start giggling, they may be uncomfortable. You're in the Bible study, right? What lessons are you going to say to me, Ellis? I'm saying, wow, that was a weird story. Like, what would you say think Mary's point of view first? What Mary did to Jesus, explain it to us so we can understand it in Christian lesson terms. Something that me, a part of the Bible study, I can take away from. What are some lessons?
I think one of the things is a display of almost unconditional love for that Mary shows to Jesus. The sky is the limit. There is no limit for what she would do, and she did all that she could. She could have had her food, maybe not as costly, but she was willing to spend whatever it took to display the love that she had for him. And I think that is a true testament for her love. She loved him that much. And sometimes it's like this, the parents have unconditional love for children most of the time, and vice versa. And, it's the kind of love that God wants us to have for each other. It's the kind of love that he displayed with Jesus on the cross. So I think that the fact that she was willing to go to those lengths to purchase something of that significant and of that value for Jesus showed an outward display of how much she loved him.
Okay, good. All right, so love to Jesus is really the main thing. This has to be coming from a place of love unconditionally, right? So this is a vitally important. What else? What other lessons can we see from Mary's actions to Jesus? Mary bending down, Mary pouring the fragrance, Mary wiping it with her hair. What she did to Jesus, how can we explain it from a Christian lifestyle? What Christian lesson?
Humility.
Okay, humility.
So I think it showed a sense of humility that she would go to the lowest part of Jesus, which was his feet. And then again, you go back and look at Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. Mary is at his feet. And so that signifies the humility that she was willing to display to go to Jesus' feet. Also, and in using her hair, because she could have used something else, but it didn't matter to her what type of outward dirt, if you will, was on Jesus's feet that would impact her hair. It didn't bother her, right? So for her, it was like, this is my Lord and Savior. I'm willing to do anything for him because of what he's done for me and because of the love that he displayed for her, that she had for him as well. So I think her being generous, her loving, showing outward love and that level of humility. When you love someone to that level, there is like anything, right? So this is a silly analogy, but just think, so parents can relate because, when you have a baby, right? They're sick, right? So there's crack, there's vomit, everything can go all over you at any given time, right? So you've done that to me before, right? You have. You've done that to me. So it doesn't matter. But now today, if you was right, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But back then it was all right.
Back then it was okay. But I think it shows that really when you're thinking about what is it that you're willing to do and or accept and to what level, it's unconditional. And it doesn't matter who's there. But what people I think will walk away seeing is, wow, the love that Mary showed to Jesus is remarkable. And even if they didn't have that kind of love themselves for Jesus or anyone else, I think it would cause them to pause and wonder, what is this?
Good. Sister Beulah and then Uncle.
Well, I believe that when we look at things spiritually, you will have that understanding. The difference between Judas and Mary. Judas was material things. Mary was spiritual. Because when we think about the spiritual things, it have no boundary. You do anything because of that love. And it don't matter if you take her hair or whatever it is. That is to show you that she was thinking spiritually with the love of God. So she don't care how much it costs, because when I do research on this was 1 year wages. 1 year wages she used on Jesus. It don't matter. It could cost how many $100. It really don't matter because it comes from the inside. But Judas was thinking something different. Holy thing. And I think today, to come back to us today, as Christians, nothing shouldn't be too much for us to do for our brethren. Nothing. Don't put, because up to today, I was discussing this with somebody. We have to die and leave everything. Everything. We may have a house, car, whatever it is. Don't put it first. Always put that love of God first in our heart.
Good.
And that is what Mary did.
Good. Okay, good. Uncle? And then Uncle Michelle.
She was dedication. She was more dedicated to him because of that eternal love, like Don said. It's like that two-way street. You go down, you got to come back. So if you come back, she knew that she's going to get that same type of love from him back to her as she was giving it to him. And in the back of her mind, the most important thing, she wanted to spend eternal life with him up in heaven.
Good. Thank you, Michelle.
Worship comes to my mind because she had him in the flesh. She was able to show him a physical way of worshiping him. We worship him in spirit and in truth because we don't have him physically, but that was like the ultimate way of showing that which is why he's here, which is why we're here to worship him.
Good. I put worship and praise. Good. Mom, you had another one?
Oh, you had that there? I'm sorry.
No, I just wrote that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just
I
wrote.
didn't have my glasses on.
I just thought about, there's a song we sing, Boundless Love. So I thought a display of boundless love that just supersedes anything that you could possibly imagine. And also, Mary wasn't afraid to publicly show, the Bible talks about us denying Jesus in front of others, right? She wasn't afraid of the repercussions of that or what someone thought. She was physically displaying her love regardless of what the Jews or would say, what the Pharisees or Sadducees. It didn't matter to her. So to her, I think it was a matter of life and death. And for her, it was life, right? In that moment with Jesus.
Anybody else? All right, let's rewind to chapter 12. Why is this such a big deal? What did Jesus do for Mary and Martha that would make someone do this and more? What did Jesus do for the two of them that would make them feel like they're
Internally
Eternal.
indebted.
yeah, like their
Internally
entire existence is indebted to Jesus.
indebted. Raised
So Jesus raised their brother from the dead, right? Remember, let's read John 11. Let's see, John 11.
Right.
Let me start in 1. Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore the sisters sent to him, not physically, but word, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was, and then this is a whole nother story. Then skip down to verse 19. Many of the Jews had joined the women around Mary and Martha to comfort them concerning their brother. Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary was sitting where? In the house. Martha ran to where Jesus was. Mary didn't. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But, because last week, right, the guy was like, Lord, I believe, help me with my unbelief, right? If you had been here, Lazarus would still be alive. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, what will happen? God will give you, right? So her faith is past human logic, right? I know Lazarus is dead, but I know anything you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live, and whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. And when she had said these things, she went her way and secretly called Mary, her sister, saying, the teacher has come and is calling for you. And as soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha met him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house and comforting her, when they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, followed her, saying, she is going to the tomb to weep there. Then when Mary came where Jesus was, remember, Jesus not in the town yet, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, period. No more quotes. Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled. He said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? And some of them said, could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind also have kept this man from dying. Then Jesus, again, groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said, "Lord, by this time there is a stench, for he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, now this is the same Martha we'll get into that had the deeper conversation than Mary. "Did I not say to you that if you would believe, you will see the glory of God?" Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was laying. Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you always hear me, but because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me." Then when he had said these things, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And he who had died came out bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Loosen him, let him go." Okay, let's go back a couple of things just to recap. Jesus hears Lazarus is sick, verses 1 and 2. He's going to make his way there eventually. We know that by verse 4, right? This sickness is only to death, but for the glory of God, the Son of God may be glorified through. He said that, right? He continues on with what he's doing. He stayed there 2 more days, verse 6. By the time he gets, it says Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away, right? So we talking about Stratford to Bridgeport, Trumbull to Bridgeport, right? Fairfield to Bridgeport, right? I'm trying to get to Bridgeport. I'm coming north. I got to go through Stratford, right? So just in Bethany is right outside the city. Now, let's think, zoom out. He knows he's going to Jerusalem to die. So think of God's overall plan of salvation, right? When we talk about free will versus divine will. He's not going to Bethany, he's going to Jerusalem. Bethany is on the way. Lazarus gets sick on the way. He stays 2 days. Lazarus died. It's all in his direction of where he's going. He's choosing to go there. Remember, the Jews already want to kill him. He could have went somewhere else. But Passover is where 1 million+ people will be in Jerusalem, the most people at a time, right? So he's going there. Martha comes running out. Mary stays behind. "If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know whatever you ask, God will give you. Your brother will rise again." Her response is so in tune with Jesus's ministry, it does a disservice, like just tonight talking about it, because her response is past most of the men in the gospel, even the disciples. Most of the men in the gospel you read where they have a response, a rebuttal, a question, they're not thinking, even remembering what Jesus said. Her response is, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Why is that a big deal? For us, post-Jesus, you would say, well, people believe afterlife. But in Jewish culture, in her culture, the Sadducees did not believe in an afterlife. What Jesus was talking about of eternally living and these sort of things was very different than how people view life. So that means she already heard his preaching and believed. Jesus' response is, "I am the afterlife." But you're talking about something that's far off. Far off is here with you right now. Whole nother Bible study. You can do 52 weeks of sermons and Bible study just on those 3 verses there. Then she said, "Yes, I believe." But he asked her, before I get to that, "Do you believe this?" Right? "Whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" Jesus already knows who he is. Do you believe that? She said, "Yes, I believe you're the Christ." So, no matter what happens to you physically, do you believe that whoever believes in me will never die? Even though your brother is dead, do you believe that I'm telling you he'll rise again? Yes. Then she went off and got married, right? Mary comes. The people who are in the house run out after her thinking she's going to go cry at the tomb. Mary is a lot more discouraged than Martha because her response stays at, "If you had been here, then my brother wouldn't have died. Now, even that is a lot of faith because that means they know the power that Jesus had. Again, a whole nother Bible study. But just think about how powerful that is of recognizing that. Then Jesus is troubled because of people's pain and agony that he's seen, right? They call him to the tomb. He cries. And then he raises Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus come out looking like Halloween in grave clothes, right? Face bound up, he walking out like this. They said, loosen him and let him go. Now we get to 6 days before Passover. He's eating, right? Lazarus is sitting with him. Verse 2, we're in chapter 12. Martha is serving the food, right? In the middle of that, verse 3, Mary takes a pound of very costly oil, anoints the feet of Jesus, and wipes his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil, right? That's the base of what we are talking about tonight, where that came from. Mary was the most downtrodden one. Martha displayed a lot more faith by saying, I know that if you had been here, he would have been alive. But even now, she said, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you, right? Then her and Jesus go through this whole exchange. I know about the resurrection. I am the resurrection. Do you believe this? Yes, I believe. Mary was way more downtrodden, right? So Lazarus is alive again. You can't wrap your mind just by reading that around the fact that a loved one was dead and now living, right? There's not much anyone in this world could tell Mary and Martha about Jesus by the time we get to chapter 12, since he raised their brother from the dead, right? I mean, this is just, someone could say, I seen Jesus kill somebody, and Mary and Martha would be like, nope, 100% not true, right? Their love for him, their appreciation for him is unexplainable, even in human words. Okay, so when we're looking at these words, right? Love, humility, worship, submission, awe, public display of affection, limitless display of affection, boundless love, dedication. When we're looking at this in the context of Jesus raising Mary's brother from the dead, could you see yourself doing something to this magnitude for Jesus if you were Mary, coming from being the most downtrodden, the most hurt, to Jesus raising your brother from the dead, and now post your brother dead, you look up, Jesus is eating, your brother is sitting next to Jesus alive and well, your sister is happy serving food, and you become so emotionally moved that you feel I have to do something very nice for Jesus, something that would be more than anyone could do or that I've done for anyone else. Could you see how this story makes more sense in that context? Anyone have any comments to that? So again, still from Mary's point of view. Can you see how the story makes more sense from understanding that context from chapter 11?
Junior, when you a person in distress and someone come to the aid and help that person, is the matter of appreciation, love, that this person, well, I'm going to say saved my life, but that person helped me in this situation that I was in. And from my heart, I would do this for that person. Nothing is impossible. Nothing wouldn't prevent me from doing something good for that person. Did that way. He raised Lazarus from the dead. They was grieving. They was in pain. The brother passed. And Jesus showed them, okay, I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? Trust me, believe in me, you will have eternal life. What else do you need? What else? Because he was there for them in every way. So I believe she did it out of love spiritually. She did it out of love. And maybe this was the way to anoint him before he really get anointed.
In preparation.
The preparation
Yeah.
for his death.
Good. Okay, so yeah, when you're looking at making it personal, right? Wow, someone did something nice for me or kindness that's not even to this magnitude, you would think there's nothing that I wouldn't do for that person.
Right.
So let alone somebody raising from the dead, right? So good. That's a very good concept there to bring. Anybody else before we move on to Jesus' point of view?
And maybe she realized that Jesus really, really loved them, that family, right? And it could be that, who knows, God put it in her heart to let her do that because somehow she figured he will be with them all the time, right? So,
Right. So regardless of crucifying, you know people are gonna die, right? So at some point, Jesus had to die in their mind, even if he got old and gray. So that's a good transition, but
Well, yeah, because Martha says that she knows that she'll see Lazarus in the resurrection. So she knew he was going, so they knew that he was going to die, right? I don't think Martha just knew it and Mary didn't, right? I think that it was something, well, we know that was something that had already previously been discussed. So when you look at the love that Jesus said that he had for Martha, Mary, and her brother Lazarus, and Mary thinking, so Martha saying, well, we know we'll see him in the resurrection, so we know that's coming, but what about now? Mary being back home had to know also Jesus is only going to be here for a short while. And whether she understood about the temple being torn down and built back up in 3 days and how the time was near because of the Passover, I think that had everything to do with it.
right. And plus, remember, people were already plotting to kill Jesus. Word spread around town, very quickly. It's very bold for Jesus to waltz in to Jerusalem, right? We don't talk about that, but the people that were plotting to kill him are in Jerusalem, and here he comes riding on a little donkey, and everyone is putting down the palm tree and praising, and he's riding in. You could see the friends maybe be uneasy, right? Like, this is not a good idea. How come we couldn't go around and go somewhere else? So yeah, you feel that negativity. People have said of famous people in the world that have been assassinated, you talk to the wives or husband or children or close friends, they say, oh, it felt like the person knew they were gonna die. Like their face changed, the way they spoke changed, all those things. Mom, and then people.
The other thing was, when you think about it, so there were Jews comforting Mary left back at the house. And so remember, those Jews had not yet believed. So we don't know how they felt about Jesus, right? So, you look at Mary and Martha, and the Jews are there comforting them, they're Jews as well. But to see Jesus, it could have been very different. So for Mary, even when she heard that display of outward affection, really could have triggered something else.
Right. Yeah, outbreak it could have been, right? Your friends are not friends all the time, right? You got a gathering, you invite friends, maybe some other friends don't like that person, right? So that plays into the house dynamic before and after. Good, Beulah?
Monday, I was speaking to this person in Walmart, and Jesus came into the conversation as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, the only perfect person that walk on the face of this earth is Jesus Christ. And she looked at me and she said to me, he wasn't perfect. I said, why you say he's not perfect? He was perfect. She said, if he was perfect, they wouldn't kill him.
But you don't realize that.
That's why they killed him.
For us.
that's why she got later.
She didn't get it. So I said, okay. And I just let it go.
Yeah, people are more inclined to kill good people than bad people. That's what's wrong with people. Remember, Barabbas was running in their tent. They said, it was him. Barabbas, we take him. What about Jesus healing blind people?
Crucify him.
This guy always wants us to change our life. Barabbas, we know where Barabbas stayed, right? You just hold your pockets tight when he get by and lock your tent door. But Jesus want me to change and be a better person. All good people die in human history all the time. Then later they say, oh, and my mistake, we killed that person. Let's make a monument for them and their family. Oh, sorry, we killed your. People do that all the time. They say, this person bad, killed them. 2 generations later, they got a big monument for them saying, look at this good person who's here, right? People will always do that. So even in today's culture, good people die all the time. So that logic is out of the window. All right, so let's transition to Jesus' point of view, right? If we look at it from Jesus accepting this display, he sat there, he didn't yell at her, he didn't do anything. He didn't even yell at Judas, right? Judas comes in and says, man, how come this wasn't sold and the money given to the poor? Leave her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial, right? They don't know really what he's saying. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always, right? So Jesus is accepting this extravagant gift. Just like the lady who put 2 mites in, the temple accepted it. The temple didn't say, oh, no. Sweetheart, you only got 2 mites. Let's only keep 1. They gladly took them 2 mites. Hey, let me have the mites. And Jesus said, look, she gave the most. Just like in the New Testament, you have people that gladly, we talked about this with dating and marriage with Paul, right? You have some people that gladly dedicate their life to God. Paul dedicated himself to God without any wife. Then his contrast was Peter has a wife. So his point was, isn't it lawful for us as preachers to take wives? Even Peter have a wife, right? It's okay. Some people give their entire life to God, and other people have a family, and that don't make them any less of a Christian. That's the whole point that Paul was trying to make. So when we look at it from that context, Jesus is accepting these things, right? Jesus knows what he did for Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. He knows what it meant to them, right? Which is why he stayed and he didn't rush there, because he knew Lazarus would be raised from the dead anyway. But it's important that we look at a couple of things. Verse 8, people take completely out of context. Some people, you hear politics, left wing, right wing, right? Sadly, in Christianity, you have that, left wing and right wing. They say conservatives and liberal Christians. When TV starts talking about evangelicals and conservative Christians, I don't know what that is, because all I know is the Bible, Genesis to Revelation, right? I know what people claim it is, but I don't understand it as a concept in the context of truth. Okay, some people say, hey, that's why you as a church body shouldn't be concerned with doing things for poor people, because Jesus said it was better to give the gift to him than to the poor, because the poor you'll always have with. Okay, first of all, no church have Jesus going to their church. That's the first thing, right? But some churches believe that. Some churches, congregations, some congregations believe that. Some congregations in the brotherhood don't believe in charitable donations to people in need if it's not from a spiritual basis. What does that mean? Missionary work, they support. But when you start talking about giving money, somebody had a fire and they need clothes or a mattress, or somebody need food or a food pantry. It's some congregation. I used to go to some of those, and we don't. Why? Because Jesus said the poor you always have. Poor people are poor people. So, I mean, you can't be caught up in physical things. It's about spiritual things. They take this verse totally out of context. That argument has no basis in this chapter, right? We're not going to spend time going through that argument, but the verse they use to support that argument is wrong, right? It's not that it's wrong, it's that it's not used correctly. It's used out of context. So I just wanted to throw that in here just in case in your studies or talking with other Christians, you may hear that come up. Jesus accepts his gift, knows how much it meant, knows how much it cost, knows what could have been done with it, but it was given to him. Just like on Sunday morning, Jesus freely accepts what you put in the collection plate. Jesus knows what you could do with that money, right? Jesus isn't stupid. Jesus knows if we took the same money we collected every Sunday and just walked down Main Street and gave it to poor people, what the difference in the impact would be, right? Jesus may say, all y'all already saved, just keep reading your Bible, pray and fast, and instead worry about giving money to poor people, right? But he said, first day of the week, collect something, sustain yourself as a local congregation. Why? Take care of home base first. When you're on a plane, they tell you put the mask on your face before you start helping somebody else, because if you can't breathe and they can't breathe, both y'all die dead because nobody had a mask on, right? That's the concept that we have. So we understand you need a local congregation before you do outreach, because the outreach got to come somewhere, and if the local congregation isn't established, you will baptize people and they'll be lost. So Jesus was accepting this. It gives us a mindset of that chapter we were talking about in 1 Corinthians, of Paul talking about people that dedicate their whole life and people that have a family. God accepts both. God is not going to shun people that want to give everything, and he's not going to bind something on everyone to interact with him the same way on an individual level, right? Holistically, as a Christian life, we all have to follow the same rules and those things. But in terms of intimate interaction, some people will go above and beyond, right? This is just a fact. Some people still give 10% today. Some people give 20%. Some people give 0%, right? This is just fact. The Bible says, give as you what, according to 1 Corinthians? Purpose in your own heart. It's up to you, how you feel, right? How do you feel about God in that relationship? This is how she felt, right? She felt that Jesus was so important. I'm going to take a year's salary worth of fragrance and anoint him and use my hair. I'm not going to be concerned about how it appears, the dirt that gets into my hair, or none of those things. So this is a powerful display of worship and sacrifice, the giver and the receiver, right? So that plays bearing to Sunday morning, right? Sunday morning, some people may be taking Lord's Supper. They may be crying, right? Maybe you're not crying, but you worry about your own sinful week. That person is giving something else. Some people Sunday morning, they singing so loud. You not even singing. You thinking they're weird. No, you are the straight one, because that person think, how could you not have sinned last week and been so excited that you're not singing, right? These are people's ways of affection. We got to stop letting other people's interaction with God make us uncomfortable, because it does, right? You have people that may get up during worship, during a song service, and other people feel uncomfortable. They feel, oh, why you don't sit down? Sit down. This when we start talking about conservative, liberal. Oh, sit. Why? Sit down. Why? Who told? Where? They want to stand. What's the big deal? No, you gotta sit, because people outside will come in and they'll think we're something else. She could have took the same logic. They'll say what? People are gonna think you romantically involved with Jesus if they walked in here. Don't do that. But let's stop that, right? We can't limit our worship to God for the fear of who we think gonna walk by the doors in the hotel, right? People do that way too much, especially in the Northeast. In the South, people don't operate like that. In the Northeast, people scared to do anything. God forbid you told somebody to lift their hand, people in church will pass out. What? Your own Bible have verses about lifting hands in the New Testament. But if you were to say, people will pass out, we are so confined, we don't like public displays of affection in a spiritual sense. We don't. It makes us uncomfortable, and this made the rest of the people in the room uncomfortable as well. So I just wanted to highlight that, because there are bearings for this in our Christian lifestyle today. But you got to take it for what it is. Don't go all the way to the other extreme. And Sunday morning, people wailing and passing out on the floor and right? Well, there's no place for that, right? God is the God of the author of peace and not confusion and chaos, right? So these are the things that we see. Again, that's why I mentioned conservative and liberals, because some people take it to the extreme on either side of the argument. Don't do nothing or do everything, right? So this is what this woman was doing. The fact that she was a woman, touched Jesus, and all of this displaying, and this was a big deal, right? This goes against all social constructs of male to female interaction and female to male interaction and all those sort of things. Okay, next question. What Christian lessons can we pull from Judas's interaction with Jesus and Jesus's interaction with Judas, right? Judas's interaction was Sister Beulah mentioned materialistic, because he said you could have sold that and given that money to the poor. Before we pounce on him, is that a true statement, yes or no?
Well, it's true.
It is true, right? You could have taken that, and instead of washing Jesus' feet, that's going to get dirty the second he get up from the table. His feet not going to stay clean, is it? So the second he get up from the table, it's going to be dirty again. What is the purpose of that when we could have given that money to the poor? My point is, people who have ulterior motives in church, they will always use a scriptural or biblical fact to get you to their way, right? I seen something online about a Church of Christ that I won't name what the name of it is, that in the header on Google it says gender friendly. Why? Because that's a buzzword right now. So they're saying, oh, we're friendly to all genders, because even Jesus was open to all genders. The problem is they use that truth and bend it to how worship service should be as a structure, right? But they're not just going to bust out with something out of the blue. They're going to make it seem like this is what Jesus was doing, would have done, and things like that. So his response was true, but two problems. One is it was to who he was talking about, Jesus, but the bigger problem was his heart, because verse 6 said what? He said this not because he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and he had the money box and he used to take what was put in. Oh, we didn't know that part. We didn't know that part, right? I didn't know that he stole. Now I see why he said that, right? So, which is Jesus knows, God knows the heart of men, right? So when God judges, it's just because people give us lip service and we believe it, but God knows what has been happening that other people don't know. So Jesus responds to him. He could have, lack of better phrase, chopped Judas's head off, right? Judas is a thief. Judas is minding Jesus' business. And Judas, by saying this, is embarrassing Mary, because everyone heard this to see what would Jesus' response be. But instead, even to a thief, even to someone who's going to betray him, he responded, not yelling, not of anything. He just said, let her alone. The Bible got a colon, didn't even have an exclamation point. She has kept this for the day of the poor, for the day of my burial. For the poor you have always, but me you do not have always, right? So Jesus' response was out of love, even when he knew somebody was dead wrong. Right? Our response sometimes is way too harsh, and we don't even know if the person is right or wrong, right? So Jesus still responded in a loving manner. Now, from Judas's point of view, be careful for yourself and others that try to use the Bible for your own agenda, right? People will start talking about something for, hey, let's do this church event or something. Then we find out they just doing it because they got a business and they using it as tax write-off. We thinking, hey, why you got us doing this? You could have just told us. They trying to use, hey, we need to fellowship more. That's a true statement, but we didn't know your ulterior motive, right? You can use this for a variety of examples that people do that impact other people's worship, right? Or their individual display of spiritual affection, their individual walk with Christ in a congregation setting. It impacts the group from personal selfish ambition, right? This is why first got to be last got to be first. Got to love God, got to love your neighbor as yourself. Got to put people ahead of yourself. Think of yourself last, right? Because when you think of yourself first, your sinful desires will start impacting how people are worshiping in your group setting, especially if you're in some form of leadership. So that's what this is talking about as a reference to today, right? We have to be careful that what we do as a local congregation is benefit to the entire group, saved, unsaved, and the people we trying to reach. Meaning, there may be an idea that we have that may be great for Ellis, but not so good for you all. I can't be so bold, rude, self-centered that I try to bully an idea or an event and everyone say, man, this event hurt us, and I say, no, this event was great for me, right? We can't be that way. We have to think about the group. That's why you use the example of kids. Same thing with worship. Sister Beulah mentioned doing things for your brother, right? Sometimes a sister or a brother knows a person in church or a family member likes a certain dish. They go to the grocery store, they spend their money, they take their time, they make that thing, and they give it to that person out of love. They didn't have to, not like they had a craving for it, but they knew person gonna come to the potluck, person like this, I'm gonna make that for that person, right? You think of others before you, right? It dictates how you worship, where you sit, if you take a bulletin or not, because you're looking around to make sure other people have. Oh no, here you go, brother, you got one. My bulletin. Oh, sit here, you good, right? That's the mindset that we have to have, but it's a process. Some people are there, some people are almost there, some people not there yet. You got to grow to that, but we got to be sure that we're allowing Jesus to penetrate, not just in lip service. That's why I wrote this last bullet point. This passage warns against mistaking discipline for discipleship. A lot of denominations have discipline down pat, because they create a box that you have to live within. And if you're not doing those things that they say don't do, then it will show people you're righteous. That's what they think. Meaning, if people see you not marrying, abstaining from food, cutting yourself for God, or not doing certain things, fasting all the time, and people know you're fasting, the Bible talks about that, they're immediately going to think what? Even a stone cold sinner going to say what? That's a religious person. That's a righteous person, right? So you equate what they're doing with righteousness. But Jesus said the tax collector was just praying like this, saying, God forgive me because I'm a sinner, right? The attitude was totally different. Now, if you look, Pharisee and tax collector, you say, who's more righteous or spiritual? Obviously, Pharisee. Pharisee dedicate their life to God through the temple. Tax collectors steal from people. Jesus was saying wrong, because inside, outside, yes, the Pharisee looks, but he called them what? Whitewashed tombs, right? Tomb look clean, but a dead body inside. But a tax collector may look bad on the outside, right? But inside, what? I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be better, right? So we look at that dynamic difference between outward appearance and inward appearance and those things. Brother Deb?
In this part, I mean, when the Iscariot, what he said about regarding this person, not one of the person, there's more than that, I believe. Because of opponent of, let's say, if you are my opponent, somebody come and glorify you or worshiping you, whatever they're doing, I be jealous here.
Yes.
Definitely I be jealous. If there's my teacher who's doing something good, which is I'm learning from him, even though I'm not loving, I don't have jealousy because you people. But this is more than that, because of the devil knew already that time has come.
Yeah.
And Jesus already spoke, let it be her. Do not bother her. And not only that, do you know when you go polishing your suit, what they polish by their clothes, by their something, right? Even fit or even shoes is the lowest part of the human body. Mm-hmm. Here is the scenario is comes when she pour the perfume or whatever this oil, what her tension is with hair, using her hair, wiping or the spreading, or what is the tension is. The meaning of this is that's the hair is most highest your level, the highest level, and she using that part. And this man, inside of him already was there something evil. The evil doesn't like that doing, which is worshiping or glorifying. This is the God, and he don't want that. And among this, those his disciples, still they didn't understand what was going on. Do you understand this way? When Jesus need anything, they's already prepared. Just like go prepare for the Last Supper, right? There was a house already, everything already. If he needed donkey, there's already donkey. Anything he need, there's already set it up. God is with God. I mean Jesus. There's everything and done, set it and done. My point is now here. This man was seeing what's going on here. The perfume is very costly, the one part. The mostly, she using her hair. That's the most that you are all things bringing love. This, yeah, definitely those are all love. This is the family that loves closest love more than any 12 disciples.
Yes.
Right? That more than the women are the most loved. That they know Jesus, even though that not much. But I like to read this. You know, the John chapter 16, verses 29 and 30. What it says is, there's all things above there. I don't want to read that, but this is the part that my point. His disciples said to him, see, now you are speaking plainly and using no figure of speech. Now, we are sure that you know all things and have no need that anyone should question. Now, but this we believe that you came forth from God. Now they believing. Now they understanding. Now at the last, what happened that 3 years they've been walking with Jesus, they saw everything. Why didn't understand at the moment? Why they all the way coming down? The 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, meaning unless God not giving you something, you can't understand, you can't comprehend those things.
Right.
That everything should come at the time. That's why everything should need to be timed. That the death is time, mourning time, everything in time. This is the time. That's why Jesus all the time talking about my time is not yet. So many time is value. The time is God. The time is your preparation. And this is significant is the Judah is not the Judah. Inside of the Judah is devil, and he don't like that.
Right.
What he is doing, his opponent. That's why this is the conversation, what's going on. And his disciples, they didn't understand what's going on. They just keep walking, keep looking.
So think about this from two standpoints. I want to spend, if we could, 5 minutes on this concept. Because first, let's look at it from Satan, right? Satan, when he got kicked out of heaven, he got kicked out of why? Think of, because to Dev's point, let's bring up what Satan wanted. What did he want in heaven that wasn't possible, so a fight had to break out?
He wanted to be
Yeah, he wanted glory, honor, praise. He gets kicked out, and when God made, this is, so to me personally, we undervalue how big of a deal creation was. Like, this is a new thing. God all of a sudden makes something, and the angels looking, what's this thing he made? Then he takes dirt and he says, I'm going to make something in my own image. And you could imagine Satan's head exploding, saying, even I just asked for honor, praise, and you going to make something out of dirt? So now Satan comes, can't show himself, in the form of something that God created, and tricks and breaks God's heart, and the plan breaks, and God said, no, don't worry, I'm going to fix it eventually with my son. Satan knows, Sunday morning class, every woman since then could possibly carry Jesus. So every time he's trying to disrupt God's plan, right? At war, mortal enemies, Jesus, God and Satan, mortal enemies, right? Now Jesus comes, Jesus born in the angels praising, glorified, right? Think of Satan the day Jesus was born, right? How upset would he be? now you get to these things, this thing. He's doing the and always getting in different people, right? Then let me trying to get into Jews and Pharisees. I know. I'm gonna get into Judas. And Judas opened his heart up and said, yup, it's room. Come on in here. And Satan come inside. Now he knows, wow, look at this. This is better than Adam and Eve. Best story ever. The 12 people you picked, your own close friend, I am going to constantly, I'm gonna have him steal, I'm gonna do this thing, tempt him, all these things, and he's gonna give you a kiss, and they're gonna nail you on a cross, right? This is where him and Jesus both know where Jesus is going. These people don't know where Jesus is going to Jerusalem. Satan knows, right? Then 6 days before, in the middle of this deal, this dinner, this woman have the nerve to pour this. And here's the thing, right? This happens all the time. It happens in congregations, right? If you we did in June, we gave out some certificates. People were doing this. Do you know some people felt some way? Why? Because this person gave their time. Did they not give their time? Yeah, this person gave it time. Did you give your time for whatever? No. So should we not honor that person for the sake of your feeling? That's how people feel, though. People feel even in school. Well, that wasn't right to honor that kid. Did that kid not get good grades? Yeah, they did. Did you get a good grade? I got a bad grade. So then, too bad for you. But people feel when you start honoring, that's not fair. But they don't think, oh, I'm not doing nothing to be honored. They feel, though, I should get an honor because you got an honor, right? That's how people feel. So when you see this, Satan is appealing to basic human emotions that we feel every single day, right? So Judas feels some kind of way. Now, how Judas in his mind twisted up with Satan feel like Jesus did him dirty in some way to betray him is baffling to me, because Jesus loved that man like everybody else. But remember, we read, okay, Judas betrayed Jesus. You don't betray someone unless you feel some type of way about them, right? So at some point, Judas' vision of Jesus changed, and he started looking at a good person as an evil person. That's to your point. That's how good people die. Because you start looking at someone and all you have to do is plant the seed of doubt, which Satan just was like, let me just drop a little bit of doubt in here. And Judas let that grow inside of him. So when he sees what's happening, he cannot even contain himself, right? He says, stop that. That is bad. Right? Think about that. You're telling the creator, hey, she's bad for doing it and you're bad for accepting that. Look, that's wrong. That's how he feels inside, right? Because why? That hate that's brewing inside of him that Satan and him are involved in goes back since before time began, right? Like Satan had been hating God that much, and the fact that he had the nerve to make something in his own image erupted something in Satan that we could not understand. That was the one thing he wanted, and he gave it to things that he felt is underneath him. And then the angels, Hebrews said, have to serve man. Oh my goodness, Satan is like another slap in the face of all things. So we don't spend that much time thinking of it that way, but think from Satan's point of view. Satan, if he could get you to believe in him and praise him, he would. But Satan know if he show you him, you'll be, oh my goodness, I'm about to be a good person. So Satan have to live in this world as if he don't exist. He can't get no honor and praise. But in his heart, that's what he wants so much. So he has to use trickery. So when we look at it that way, even the Bible talks about it, hair being woman's crown. Today, same, right? Some women say, don't touch my hair, right? You playing around. God forbid, if you touch that woman's hair, inside of her will grow, like Incredible Hulk. He's just a regular person, but he get upset. And Maybe she slapped you, maybe she punched you. You thinking, what's the big deal? You can touch mine. No, we're not talking about touching yours. Don't touch her hair, right? Because she spent time. She don't just like guys and just leave the house, right? No, let me make sure everything. And you don't even need pocketbook for a mirror because now you got your phone. You just making sure you know, right? And somebody come up and say like this, and you will see anger inside of a woman sometimes. So to take the crown of her head and the bottom of his feet, that connection bond, like we talked about, is the most of glorious that any person could have done. Outside of really killing yourself for Jesus, think about it. Like, money is nothing. Think from Satan's point of view, right? Money is nothing. So to humiliate yourself for the cause of Christ, that is what upsets Satan the most, which is why James talk about draw near to God, he'll draw near to you. Resist the devil, go to God, the devil will flee from you. When you are a good Christian, that is the ultimate slap in Satan's face. Because Satan's point is, they're not going to love you. We love you. We were there with you. These people never seen you. And you love them more than us. That's Satan's logic. Then he loved them more than us. We were here. And some of the angels said, hey, you're right. That's no fair. And once people start talking about no fair, you can get them to do anything. That's how churches split. Someone say, hey, they don't love you like other families. Why? Because look at this thing. And that. You say, you're right. No fair. I don't like that. Right? People start feeling like things not fair. Everything changes. Whatever reason, Judas felt like the world is not fair. Nothing. I don't like this. I don't like that. Some people just miserable. Right? The sun, it's too bright. It's raining. It's too dark outside. It's too cold. It's too hot. This food, it burned my mouth. This food too cold. They are never happy. And once that brew in here, and in here, what happened? Bad thing. So when we look at it from that standpoint, we understand there's so many things at play. The dynamics between God versus Satan, the dynamics between Judas and Satan, dynamics between Judas and Jesus, Mary and Jesus, the other people in the room, the Jews that believed, the Jews that hated Jesus more because he raised Lazarus from the dead. All of this is happening around this same moment, and Jesus is able to sit there and accept that woman's worship and offering. Just like on Sunday morning, it's people killing people, it's people hurting people, doing wrong, talking about people, and God is still saying, but I can still hear people worshiping in spirit and in truth. And you say, well, look, all this turmoil on, I can still hear people praying to me and doing the right thing. Out of 8 billion people of chaos, still I can hone in. Like when Jesus was walking, the lady touched to him, said, I felt power leave from you, right? Your God is that powerful that he can look past the nonsense of the world and see you. He looked past Satan, looked past Judas, looked past the other Pharisees that wanted to kill him and killed him because of Lazarus, and still seen Mary. They didn't hold it against her in the chapter before about her faith. They didn't hold it against Martha, and still had an intimate relationship with them. And then the final point to that was, like we alluded to earlier, these women believed stronger and faster and loved Jesus more than the men. Because Jesus said, if you love me, how will I know that? You will keep my commandments. The men were so afraid they would not even go see his body. Oh, but the men in church always talking. Men is talking, so much talking. But when it was time to open the door and walk out, the men was no longer talking like these little mice. You know how you hear mice, but you can't see them?
No.
Yeah, it's like, you're like, hey, where's the mouse so quick? Say, where's the mouse? Oh, I hear it. Where's that? But the women said, we're going to the body. The men, I can't go. Why can't you go? He's gonna grab us. Too scared. Then when the women came back and said, look, Jesus, Let's these women. So we gotta check. Why? Well, come on, let's check. Right? That's the dynamic. The women believe with their heart so much when they took Jesus' body off. Believe so much. Prepared the body wrap. Believe so much. The men scatter like roaches when you turn the light on. Run away. Look at dynamic because the men just believed when it was almost time to go. Jesus like dinner almost over, and they said, "Oh goodness, we waiting 4 years almost. Now we finally believe you are the Christ." Oh, but Martha said that in chapter 11. Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. You didn't hear her? We believe some, but not that much, right? Things can happen in your life that push your faith past even your last name. And if you try to explain that and say, "Oh, I believe this much," sometimes people who you love and who respect looking at you thinking, "What's wrong with you?" Oh, I just love God so much. People thinking, "All right, so I love God too." No. Like, I really love God so much. That's the dynamic that's happening. Jesus is impacting people different. Some people are all in, some people a little bit in, and some people like Judas hate. The same man, the same love, the same teaching is getting received differently. Some people believe it, some people kind of believe, and some people hate it. That is the world we live in today. So that last question is that concept, right? What real life experience does Jesus' death forever define, like a scent we never forget, right? That love permeates all throughout the globe, right? You can't escape it. And the more people are baptized, the stronger Christians become, the more powerful that fragrance is, where the Bible said that worship service on Sunday goes up to God's throne as a what? Sweet smelling aroma. That's what I was waiting for. Every Sunday, God waiting. Man, I'm waiting for worship. And we be like, "Oh, not today. I don't got nothing for you today, God. Next week. I got you next week. Let me hold you back." Right? That's because we let life tear us down. So when we look at it, again, so complex, this scene, this set of passages, some people understand it, some people misteach it, misapply verses. But for us, think about our life individually to Jesus, to God through Jesus, how we interact with one another, how we worship, how we around others that worship, and how we do or try not to let our sinful desires get in the way of our spiritual walk, right? Some people get robbed of their blessing every day or when we come together collectively because they already came to worship or to the study upset, right? Had you not came upset, you might have had a more blessed day, but you don't let God in. Right? Judas already came to this dinner upset. Why? Because I already don't like him. Why? I don't have no reason. I just don't like him. I'm going to betray him. I'm going to get this money and everything's going to be good. He already came to it in a negative way. That negative light could have disrupted this whole supper, but Jesus said, nope. He still said in a loving way and said, "She has kept this for the day of my burial." Right? And then we know the story from there. So Sunday, there'll be a part 2 of this public appearance because, again, remember, this is a transition. Luke is a good gospel. The whole gospel of Luke is transitioning you to Jerusalem. That's the purpose that Luke is writing, and is highlighting certain things. But when you look at this, take some time to study this socially. Take some time to study it from a religious standpoint. This passage, this set of passages here is so jam-packed with info. All right. So